Hi, good evening. There are a few more people expected still, but I think let's kick off rather than hold on. So thank you very much indeed. I appreciate everybody being here. I would like to view this as being as interactive as you'd like to make it. So I'm happy to be interrupted at any time to deal with anything that you want to. I really don't mind. I'm going to go through briefly an updated presentation, but as I say, I'm prepared to take questions, discuss, move on to wherever we need to go at any time. One of our, do I need to use it?
Yeah.
Do I need to use it? Will I use that?
If you want, we can use it, this one. If you
Yeah, I'll use that. That's fine. Are you going to carry this for me?
Yeah.
Where does this go? That's right. Is that working? You need it for that there. Okay. Jerry Keane from Shore Capital's here. Shore Capital, our brokers. Ryan Long's here as well, I think from Northlands. And you cover us as well. Roland Cornish is here from Beaumont Cornish. So some of our regulatory and advisors are here as well. And I'm quite sure that we will deal with whatever it is that can reasonably be dealt with. And I'm very open to whatever questions, as I say. Okay. Disclaimer which is there. And if you'd like to read it, I'll just sort of pause for a moment, or if we can. What we are, our profile, I think most of us had these discussions before. AIM listed, our development assets, primarily tungsten lithium. Together with the lithium at Zulu, there is tantalum. Rare earth elements we have at Kateti, and then some industrial minerals, and that's an interesting addition in the hopefully soon to close transaction with TCT in Mozambique that has a substantial limestone deposit there. Our management team, and we'll come into the individuals there, and between us I think we've had quite a few years of looking at the development of different assets in Africa largely, but also elsewhere too. Our strategy to get RHA into profitable production obviously is the number one objective at the moment. We are realizing that we need to focus strongly as well on Zulu, onto that lithium, and although it's hard rock, it's high grade and it's extensive. It's a big deposit, and we'll discuss that in a little bit more detail later. And then other near-term opportunities. We see the opportunity in Mozambique as being a very interesting one in that it's a natural hedge to the risks that are associated with exploration. And if you think that a very small percentage of all exploration plays ever become mines, a very small percentage, to find something that actually has a hedge to what could be a substantial mining operation on that limestone is interesting. And where we see our value, RHA, as it comes back into production now, and then the exploration upside on Zulu, the shareholding in Circum. Circum's a private company, and we've had these discussions on many occasions. I'm not on the board of Circum. I'm not involved from a day-to-day perspective, but we do have 2 million shares in the company. The last placement value, which is well over a year ago, was at $2 a share. We place a nominal value of $4 million on it. But the NPV, and you can pick this up from Circum's website, discounted NPV is $2.1 billion. It's potentially the lowest cost potash producer around, and it's big. So, and they have announced that they are in various, they have announced that they appointed Morgan Stanley some time ago as an advisor. And they've also said that they anticipate a liquidity event. So I think that there's reasonable value there in the Mozambican property that I've discussed. Our capital structure at the moment, we're all very conscious of our share price, but I think it's slightly up on that at the moment. Is that right, Mr. Keane? I think it's trading marginally up. But what I do understand and what I perceive at the moment is that there's some reasonably good buying interest at these levels. And it seems that there are buyers, and there are there are a number of buyers around at these levels. So the trading volumes are still quite high. Moving on from there, our board at the moment, we are 3 of us on the board. When we come to discussing other aspects of Prem, I'll come back on the board and discuss some of our strategies there. I do think that there are some strengthening and some additions that we can look at and that we are contemplating in terms of our management. But I'll have a further discussion on that one. From an operating perspective, we've got a particularly strong geological side at the moment. And that was necessary to deal with what has taken far too long as far as I'm concerned, in getting the resource review at RHA out. But we've got a strong geological team there, and again, I'll come and discuss that in a little bit more detail later. In particular, Gerard Evans was with Datamine for many years. He was a senior executive in Datamine. He's a very good resource geologist, and the modeling and so on we are now doing in-house as well. So we have a direct handle on that aspect of it. The location, we're in Zimbabwe and to an extent in Mozambique. We have some other interests, but my focus is really into the Southern African region at the moment. I need to deal with these, and once that is done, we can look elsewhere. Briefly updating on the projects, the Zulu project, lithium and tantalum, 3.5 kilometer long pegmatite. I'll put a model of that up just now. That's the strike that we've identified, and grades of up to 1.5% lithium in various different hard rock minerals. There's more than just spodumene there. There are at least 3 or 4 different lithium hard rock minerals that are there. And then the tantalum as well, and as you can see, up to 1,037 ppm in places. We will have drills turning at Zulu within the next 7 days. The contracts, the quotations, the work, the access roads are cut at the moment, and those drills, as I say, will be turning within 7 days. I think it's an extremely exciting project, that. We haven't done much work on Globe, but we still hold the claims. We have the rights. It's an interesting polymetallic zone together with the graphite. It's very close to RHA. As we're able to divert resources and exploration activity away from RHA, we'll go back into that. Globe, Tindi as well, and Kateti, which are all very close by. Yes.
Can I ask a question at this point?
Of course.
On the Zulu project,
Yes.
from a private investor, the original idea was you were going to seek for a joint venture.
I haven't. I'm sorry.
Why has that changed now to we will take it to the next stage? Is it because you see value in it, or is it you want to prove up more value in the joint venture so that you can progress revenue streams?
I think that we will see better value, but let me just step back and say that I said that there are negotiations. There are still discussions. That hasn't changed. There are a number of people who have approached us on a number of occasions in regard to lithium, hard rock lithium. If there was anything more substantive than that, I would announce it, but there isn't at this stage. So there's a lot of interest, lots of interest in this at the moment, and I think that's indicative of what the state of the market is. In terms of doing the drilling ourselves, I see that we will get much better value out of it as we advance this. And beyond, and again, I'll come back to the model just now, we see surface extension over 3.5 kilometers. The area that was historically drilled by Rhodesian Selection Trust, RST, is over a much shorter strike distance. And their calculation of what they believed the resource to be, and that's published, it's in the public domain, is over a very constrained area and to a very limited depth. Our subsequent drilling that was done 4 or 5 years ago indicated depth extensions to over 200 meters and some reasonable widths as well. So we're able to postulate that this should be significantly larger. And in fact, our views today, based on a correlation of our surface work, RST's drilling, the drilling we did 4 or 5 years ago, all seems to indicate that the view that this is the largest undeveloped hard rock lithium deposit in Zimbabwe is probably correct.
Just to summarize then, so I can...
Yep.
Is that there was an original plan to go for joint venture, and you see more value by doing some of the groundwork yourself, so you can present that in a better way, so you present more of a value to a joint venture partner. Why all of a sudden the change if you had all the original drilling 5 years ago? Is it, I'm just going to say, is it a financial issue that you've got to bring that forward to try and finance to make sure anything else in the pipeline on other projects is not going to cause a problem? So you drill maximum potential, you get the joint venture maximum potential, and that keeps the walls away from the door from the other projects who are not delivering. That's just a summarization of how I see it.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. That is not necessarily the case. It was not originally the intention to seek a joint venture partner for Zulu. It came out of approaches to us. And whatever discussions there were and may still be ongoing are not as a result of us precipitating the discussion. It was approaches made to us. We had...
Sorry, can we just break that down a bit then?
Yes.
So, I mean, my take from that is that when you say approaches, that presumably you receive proposals, and those proposals you don't see as offering sufficient value, so you decided to go it alone for the next few months or whatever, prove up the resource a little more, and then be able to sort of capture more value through a JV.
I believe that that's what the situation will be. And I think that that is the right thing to do at this time. And in
hindsight, given what's transpired over the last 7-10 days after the last announcement, do you still believe that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do, and I'm happy to come back a little bit later and have a fuller discussion on that. Very happy to do so. But yes, I very definitely do feel that that is the situation.
Just ask one question.
Of course.
You said at the outset that the drilling commences over the next 7 days.
Yes.
There on the page it says on the 3rd of September, which should we take as the real situation?
Brendan, is the contract signed yet? Where's Brendan? Here you are. The proposal is in. It's been accepted. The final drilling contract, the road access is done. We have people on site cutting the road access, preparing the pads, etc., etc. That is all there and done. We signed the contract. The man is ready to mobilize out of Bulawayo, which is about 70 kilometers away. Everything is ready to go. His diesel tankers are full. His water tankers are full. Everything is done. So maybe in saying within 7 days, I'm being a little conservative.
But no doubt you'll
And absolutely.
You mentioned the test work being done in Germany. I remember a while back we had a lot of trouble getting samples out of Zimbabwe to Germany.
Yeah.
This recent announcement referred to test work being done in your own labs, presumably at RHA. Is that where the lab work's going to be done in future?
Okay, the bulk test material that we had a huge amount of difficulty in getting shipped out of Zimbabwe, and then we had damage to the packing, and we had to go and retrieve it, repack it, and so on and so forth. That was just a horror story. That is material that is with Anzaplan in Germany. The purpose for that metallurgical test work and the direction that they have is to formulate the lowest cost concentrate that I can economically ship out of Zimbabwe. That's the objective of that test work. So lowest, the most efficient concentrate that I can take out at whatever the lowest capital cost is in Zimbabwe. That's the objective of that. Separate to that, when we do the drilling, the sample preparation, the management of the core will come up, it gets marked, the holes are surveyed. That core will then go to our facilities that we have at RHA. At RHA, we will split the core. We will select the areas to be sampled. We'll deal with the logging. We will then deal with the sample preparation of that material. The milling, the crushing, the milling, the riffling, the splitting, everything else, and the preparation of it. To the point where we have a small component that needs to go to a laboratory for final determination of the lithium content in that sample, because the machinery that we have at RHA cannot handle a light metal such as lithium. So the XRF cannot determine what that lithium content is. And there are technical geologists around here who will confirm that it's a different process that needs to be followed to measure the lithium correctly. But the sample preparation will do so that it becomes a very small sample that is shipped out, and that's a huge amount easier and a hell of a lot less costly and a lot quicker to get out of the country. And that saves a lot of money.
Well, not only money, but also time.
Time as well.
This process moving, right?
Yeah, time, it's one of the most frustrating issues.
So
Okay.
Can you put all that within a sort of work program and a sort of schedule that we can have in our minds of how long this is going to take?
The drilling should take no longer than 6 to 8 weeks. The sample preparation is an ongoing process. That is going to take at least between 3 and 4 months. But before all the logging is done, all the core splitting is done, all the sample preparation is done, and the material can be shipped out. And then it's going to be up to whichever lab we use. If it's going to be SGS in South Africa, whether we're going to send it out to wherever it's going to go. There potentially will be quite a lot of it, and we'll have to look and see which labs we use. So to give you a time frame on that, and I hope to shorten the time frame, I would anticipate that we're looking at 4 months, and I think that's more or less the limit before we can start producing detailed assay results. Will there be other announcements and news flow along the way? Yes, there will. When drilling starts, when drilling stops, anything that is particularly significant that comes out of the drilling, for example, strike extensions and so on and so forth.
And have your, sorry, you might wriggle on this, but
No, no.
have your sort of potential partners, I'll call them, have they asked for sort of real-time sort of
No.
visibility of what you're doing?
No. I'm not going to give anyway. I see that this project is of that much significance, and particularly in the lithium space at the moment, that we owe it to ourselves, our shareholders, to deal with this and look for as much value as we can out of it. The cost of drilling, I might just add, in Zimbabwe is very competitive. And I mean, just to give you an idea, and those who've been drilling elsewhere, if I tell you that we have a quotation on diamond core NQ at $75 a meter, I mean, that's a ridiculously low price. And Ryan and Mike, I'm sure you'll understand. That's not the sole cost. There are obviously other costs associated with it. There are mobilization, demobilization costs, and various other things with it. But that's a very, very sharp price in Zimbabwe. So it's going to be an efficient program. Okay. What comes next? Right. Back to RHA. We know where it's located. We know what we're producing. That's the historic resource. That's the original resource that the open pit mine was based on. The development strategy is where we are at the moment. Underground mining development accelerated. Open pit re-evaluation underway. And it's the resource review that we expect this month. We expect it, is it September yet? Sorry. Tomorrow. September, tomorrow. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be tomorrow. But it's going to be before the end of September. The mining method, as I say, moving to underground, we may revisit the open pit. Production rate, we're targeting 8,000 tonnes per month initially, the grade of 6 kg per tonne, and recovery of 80%. The sensitivities indicate that we are profitable at less than this. I'll go into more detail on that. And then getting into the process plant. That's the screen assembly that you can see up there. It's a double-deck screen assembly, and this was as this was being installed. That screen assembly is being located on top of this cone crusher. Now, in the original plant, the original design did not include any screening of the material that is fed into the cone crusher. Hi. And there are a number of technical issues associated with it. That cone crusher could not produce the required throughput, which is 16 tonnes an hour, of material at the specified size, which was minus 6 millimeter. That was the dressed ore size. It could not produce it if oversized or undersized material was fed into the cone crusher. And the double-deck screens that have now gone in are intended to take oversized material and recycle it back to the first primary crusher, which is a jaw crusher, to take undersized material, everything already below 6 millimeter, and direct it straight to the plant. And there's probably, on an initial pass, 10 to 15% of the material at least, which is already undersized, and allow the rest of the material to go through the cone crusher. And that was the technical issue that meant that we could not operate the plant at anything like the design tonnage in the beginning. To get appropriate process technologies to the point where they eventually have supplied that and that component and various other conveyors and one or two other fixes as well, was all supplied at the expense of appropriate process technologies. But to bring it to the point where they agreed to do it and install it and actually get it done has been a very difficult process in dealing with them. But it is there. Now, the ongoing delay at the moment is that contained within these decks in here is a vibrating platform. The vibrating platform has a series of mesh panels that are inserted, and those mesh panels are of a particular size. The mesh panels that were inserted, the sizes that was originally supplied have had to be changed because they did not allow the correct quantity of material to pass and to recycle. The very latest I have this afternoon, excuse me, sorry, switch off the mic, I didn't mean to do that. Cough up in the air. The very latest I have, which is about an hour or so ago, is that these new mesh panels will be delivered on the 5th of September. 5th is Monday. And that is in Johannesburg. They'll be delivered and they will then be transported to site with an installation expected on the 12th of September. That's from Appropriate Process Technologies. Once those are in, we will then be able to go back to the optimization of this plant. I'm happy, sorry?
Just a quick question on that. They're never quick anyway. But
No, it's fine.
from all the RNSs that have been issued, production was running last year at some point.
Yes,
So-called production.
yes.
What's happened to all that? Will that be reprocessed to optimize after you've done the optimization? So basically you're stacking it somewhere ready to optimize. Or is that discarded? Or has it been passed across to someone else to deal with at a cheap rate? Because
Well,
there must be something there because people are working every day. They don't just sort of say, well, we're stopping now. And
well, there was a point in time late last year where, when I stopped the open pit, where there wasn't material coming from the open pit to process through the plant. But let me go back prior to that. There were a number of issues. Top of the list was that this cone crusher, as I've explained, could not pass the correct quantity of material. And that was the start point of this. There were other issues. There are a whole lot of other minor plant fixes that along the way we've had to, in the normal course of business, we've had to fix. One of them, for example, was the installation of a belt scale. The plant was originally supplied without a continuous weighing device. I put in a continuous weighing device, I can't remember, 5, 6 months ago, whenever it was. One of the early things that we established from that is that the tonnages, the estimated tonnages that we'd been given from Appropriate Process Technologies in terms of feed and throughput were actually overstated significantly. So the amount of material that had been fed into the plant during the period of the open pit, the tonnage of ore was actually overstated. That, of course, was a factor of that machine, that cone crusher, not being able to pass sufficient material. So it's been a case of having to wait to get that screen assembly in, get the recycling done, as has happened in the last couple of months, and with the belt scale installed as well, to be able to properly assess and start properly assessing the real performance of this plant. So it's been a very difficult couple of months. But when we first installed this and ran it even with the wrong screens and without proper optimization, and running it on ore that we had mined from underground, because remember we've re-equipped the shaft, we've moved into mining from underground. The plant performance, even at that stage, still with only passing 9 to 10 tons an hour and not 16 tons an hour, the plant performance, the recovery, the amount of wolframite that we were seeing coming out in the rest of the plant and the jigs and so on, and the quality of that concentrate was so significantly different to what we had seen last year that this was almost a different plant. So the underlying message with this is that we are comfortable that with those screens in, and now hopefully with the right mesh panels going in from the 12th of September, that the overall performance that we're going to see out of this plant and the quality of that concentrate is now going to put us at a point where this target there of 8,000 tons per month, that's subject to mining, and I'll come back on a discussion on the mining side just now, but that 8,000 tons per month at that grade and at a recovery, and the recoveries are already in excess of 70%, even without the correct size, mesh sizes in there. The recoveries were already over 70%. That the future of this now does look to be heading in the direction that all our projections and all the work that we've done has indicated it should.
So where is the stuff that's 70%? Is that sitting waiting to be shipped?
At site at the moment, there's probably 6 or 7 tons of material that is waiting to be shipped. That's wolframite.
So
Done.
you're going to leave it at the 70%? You're going to pass that on as is?
No, let me explain. The concentrate contains wolframite, and the grade in the concentrate is in the region of 60 to 65%. The recovery from the ore that we process through the plant, if we put 8,000 tons at 6 kgs per ton, we're putting 48,000 kilograms into the plant. Of that 48,000 kilograms, we are anticipating to recover 80%. 80% of that is approximately 40,000 kilograms. 40,000 kilograms is 4,000 metric ton units on a monthly basis. So that's where that projection takes us to.
Going back to the screen.
Yes.
How long do you sensibly think you need to run the operation to confirm whether that plan is actually happening in reality, or whether, as you there's some other issues come out? What, is it a couple of weeks? Is it 2 to 3 months? What's the reason?
Okay. There are 2 recovery points on the plant. The one is for coarse material, which is a jig. It's a conventional pneumatically operated jig that literally causes a concentration of the heavy material of that particular size to settle. That's a very easy recovery. And the jig operation it's a well understood and commonly used process. That's quick. That happens almost as you start feeding material through. The finer material that contains significant amounts of wolframite, but usually in lower concentrations and in much smaller particle sizes, will either go through a mill and then be fed to a set of spirals, or it will go direct to the spirals. The spirals are simply a water slurry device that spirals down, and the heavier material sits on the inside and concentrates. The lighter sits on the outside and flows away to tailings. After the spirals, this goes to a set of concentration tables, shaking tables, which vibrate and which again are intended to separate light from heavy. Now, the optimization of the flow rates through the spirals and the action of the tables excuse me, is not instantaneous. I don't think that it should take more than 3 or 4 weeks to understand properly what the flow rates should be and exactly what we should be looking at through the spirals, what the concentrate level should be at different stages. But we have to go through that process, because up until now, the tonnage, the design tonnage, has not been fed into the spirals.
To set expectations, it would be
Roughly a month.
October, shall we say,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Yes, I mean, from what you said, broadly speaking,
We might better it, we might not.
End of October would be a reasonable expectation for an hour.
Yes. The other issue that I need to come back and just discuss the mine tonnage at the moment as well.
Is there any value in the tailings as aggregate?
In historic tailings, in the current tailings that we are generating, the target, and again this goes back to what I was talking about through the spiral system and getting the flow rates right, the target is that we would be putting less than a kilogram per ton into tailings. That's the anticipated grade. It's in fact 700 grams per ton is the target. Now, it's going to take some time to actually get that one right. So current tailings that we are generating, that we generate and have generated, that has a very low grade of contained wolframite. There are some historic tailings, and there's somewhere between 20 and 30,000 tons of historic tailings that are running at between 2.5 and 3 kilograms per ton of contained wolframite. Now, we did run some of that through the plant. We were able, contrary to what we'd been told in test work done a couple of years ago, we were told we couldn't get a concentrate. When we ran it, we were able to get a concentrate. So we are still able to take that material, even though it's at a lower grade than this targeted 6 kg per ton here. We are able to take that and use it to make up any shortage from a mining perspective in the next couple of months. So there is some value there. The recoveries are not as good, but we worked out that we could actually break even on processing it. And the reason we can break even on processing it is there's no mining cost associated with it. So although it's much lower, although the recoveries are not that great, the recoveries are probably somewhere between 50 and 60%, even so, because there's no mining cost, we can actually break even, make a little bit of money out of it. So that can be used to make up. Okay. Let me just briefly talk about the 8,000 tons per month. We are having ongoing discussions and negotiations with different mining contractors. We have a mining contractor on site who's mining. He did the re-equipping of our shaft. The shaft is operative. Material is coming out from underground. This target of 8,000 tons hasn't been hit yet, but it is projected to be hit in the fairly near future. There is a little bit of work to be done to improve material flows in the shaft, both at the discharge and at the loading point, and also at the ROM pad tipping point. And I think I have referred to some of this in an RNS fairly recently. So there is a little bit of work to be done, but that is all work in process at the moment. And we do anticipate that that 8,000 ton target, once we're able to go back into production with the plant properly optimized and so on, that using mined material and a combination of tailings, that we're going to get pretty close to that, and as quickly as possible. And excuse me, I would like to believe, I'd like to think, but it's in the future, that from sometime in October, we're going to be able to look at this plant and say that's what's going through it.
So one other question is, and it's a little bit about export, given some of the issues we had with listings. Do you actually expect to be able to get the output across the Zimbabwean border swiftly?
Yes, that doesn't represent a problem. We have contracts in place that deal with whatever it is that we need to do in terms of exporting. So that doesn't represent a problem at all. The material is loaded. There's a weighbridge in Wangi. The truck goes across the weighbridge. The export documentation is done very quickly, and off it goes. So there isn't an issue there. There are in the Zimbabwean side on that, and Brendan is sitting at the back there. I mean, he'll confirm. He deals with most of that. has not represented a problem, exporting that product. Heaven help us when we try and export a sample. Because the moment you try and export a sample, everybody thinks you're exporting gold or this or that or whatever it might be. And of course they can't see what's in it. Okay. Sorry, I just want to take this thing off for a moment because I really need to cough. I will put it back. No, it's all right, thank you. Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry, I was just slightly lost just on one issue. So I think I recall from recent RNS is that you were going to be issuing shipments in September.
We've got a shipment that will go in September, yes.
You already are shipping those?
There will be a shipment in September. I said to you there's about 6-7 tons that's sitting there at the moment. That'll be made up to a minimum of 10 tons sometime from the 12th of September onwards. That won't be a problem, that.
On that point, the shipment going out, what's the deal still with Noble that surrounds RHA?
Okay.
Still existing, or is that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The deal with Noble still exists. We had a site visit from Noble's technical and buying people last week. They were more than surprised at the amount of development at RHA, at the size of the operation that we have at RHA. They are not used to seeing that kind of situation in buying wolframite in Africa. So they were very surprised at that. They are very supportive in all sorts of different ways of what we are doing. And I might just mention that one of the things I've recently asked Noble, and we'll come back onto the recent financing and so on, you will have noticed that there were a couple of soft triggers there. And one of the soft triggers related to the wolframite price. And I have formally asked Noble to underwrite wolframite at whatever that trigger level is. And should the price fall back below that, that they will continue buying from us at that price. And at the moment, I've had a very good response from them. So there's good support. From the point of view of being able to sell wolframite, the demand is much stronger than the price seems to indicate. I have approaches from many different people wanting to buy. There's no question about that. There's no issue in terms of being able to sell it.
So you just go back. So they verbally indicated that they would listen to you or think about it, or
I told them that I want them to do it, otherwise I'll go and sell it somewhere else. And they went away with a smile, and they were very impressed with the visit they had, and we were on very good terms and so on and so forth. And they promised to come back to me during the course of this week. Okay. But I can get that elsewhere. I have other people who have already said to me they will give me that undertaking.
So you're not restricted to one.
Well, it's a simple situation. We have a contract in place that says we'll give them the first 500 tons. Thereafter, it's on a best price basis. But as I said to them, if you're not going to give me this undertaking, then I've got a problem in continuing to finance. So you better give me the undertaking if you want any wolframite. And that was what the discussion was. It was a very simple discussion. So
it's a shame they can't do with all your soft triggers. But we'll come back after that.
we'll come back onto that one. Yes.
On the point of price, why is there such pressure when it's starting to come up, when you see the price firming up?
So why is that?
Why is the price so weak?
So weak. Well, you know, when we did the original studies, the wolframite was over $400 a metric ton. That was when we started on this thing, and it went right down to less than 150. So there's been very significant. There's a little discussion on pricing on wolframite a little bit further on. And I think one of the people who's looked quite closely at this recently is Ryan, who's here, and maybe if you want to, a little bit later, if you want to comment. I've asked Noble to give me their views on it, and they have given me their views. I can dig out the email and sort of read the thing to you. The expectation basically from their point of view is that they do see that there will be some firming later. Now, later this year, early next year, that's kind of what they're saying. It's marginal for a lot of people to produce wolframite when the ammonium paratungstate price, which is what we're discounted off, is sitting where it is. There's already been cutbacks in various, some mines have stopped. There's been cutbacks in different places in the world, and this supply-demand curve is going to cross, if it hasn't crossed already. So I think that there will be some firming in that price.
In the last RNS, you said that RHA was projected to be profitable if APT was 180.
Yes. Yes.
Is that even with Noble getting the discount they get?
Yeah, look, the discount, we only get 65% of, more or less, plus minus, 65% of the ammonium paratungstate price. That's the discount that's applied to the APT price.
Anyone who wants to chase the...
Yeah, it's generally across the board. It's pretty well what it is. You might find a percent movement one way or another. You might find small variations that relate to the silica content, for example, or whether if the concentrate grade goes above 65% or below 63 or whatever it is. There are small variations, but the discounts are all there, whether it's Noble or whether it's the Russians or whether it's Wolfram, whatever they are in Austria, or whoever it might be. They're all more or less in that kind of vicinity. One of the ways of improving the price is if you're able to sell of a grade that is suitable for direct ferrotungsten production. Now, wolframite is the preferred mineral for ferrotungsten production, and we've had off and on discussions for a long time now as to whether or not we could go that route. One of the problems that we have, one of our difficulties, is a fairly high silica content. The other, which is emerging only now, is that as we go into the underground, there is more copper in the mineralization as we see it. So I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I don't quite know where the mine's going to go as we get right down into the much, much deeper. But we are seeing that there is copper in the system as well. Okay. So there we go. Really, just in summation, I think we've spoken about all of this. This here remains an interesting issue. And let me go back on this one here. You've all seen reports recently on Zimbabwe and what's happening and the difficulties and so on in Harare. In the area where we are, it is quite peaceful. Generally, when I go to Zimbabwe, I'll travel either up through Botswana and go in through the northern, close to Victoria Falls, or I'll go through also through Botswana and through Bulawayo and go up. And there are no issues. We have not had any issues of any concern at all in the area that we are in. So we're quite comfortable. And of course, in Zimbabwe, the infrastructure and various other things actually remain very good. By comparison to many other parts of Africa, Zimbabwe is like light years ahead. I just wanted to chat briefly about this 51% ownership by the Indigenization Economic Empowerment Fund. That remains so. But there has been an ongoing negotiation, and it is still an ongoing discussion and so on, with our state partner, to the effect that they may look to vary their ownership interest in exchange for a levy or similar against wolframite that is produced. It's very difficult to anticipate what is going to happen in Zimbabwe. If I go back to the Zulu lithium and tantalum pegmatite, those claims are held by a Zimbabwean company that we still own 100%. So there is no dilution of our shareholding on the Zulu lithium and tantalum project at this stage. We own 100% of it. It hasn't gone into production. It isn't at production. We'll have to see what happens a little bit further down the road. But at this stage, we still own that project, 100%. Okay.
Well, just on that, so, I mean, what was the catalyst to this discussion? I mean, is it anything to do with the fact that in the foreseeable future, you're going to get 100% of the cash flow anyway?
Well, in terms of RHA, we would get 100% of the cash anyway because of the loan accounts.
Yeah.
And that's really where it is.
And is this why they want to sort of think about changing?
Well, they haven't said as much. It's us that have prompted the discussion. We've been to them, we've engaged them, and we've engaged them on the basis that the loan account is substantial, that we continue to support it, and for a number of similar reasons such as that. So Zimbabwe is quite dynamic at the moment. I'm not quite sure where it's going to go in terms of some of the policies that are there and whether some of those policies can be sustained under the existing general economic situation in Zimbabwe.
Does the loan account associated with this be published in the accounts properly?
Yes.
i.e. that there are still development costs even though Darwin aren't involved in that bit?
It's all there. It's all there.
So, sorry, is there anything you can say about the cost situation or what you anticipate? I know it's obviously difficult at the moment with the organisation, but you've also made statements in the past about...
Well, let me go back to this. There's the formula. There's the target. There's the target throughput. There's the target grade. There's the target recovery. If that's what we put through at that grade and that's what we recover, we're making money.
How much?
I need to get out a pen and whatever and dig out my projections, but I've got all the budgets here.
I think
I've got a schedule of sensitivities, and I'm quite happy. I'm a little bit later. I'm quite happy to dig out the sensitivities for you.
because in the past you've made comments around, I think, $89.
$89 per ton was the target. That was the original target, all-in production cost when we first commissioned the open pit. The first negotiations with Waleside mining contractors, who are at the moment the mining contractors still at site, was that they would deliver ore to our ROM pad at $18.50 a ton at a grade of 6 kgs per ton. If you look at this on the basis of a recovery of, say, 5 kilograms out of the 6 per ton, then the mining cost would be $37 per ton. On that basis, the $89 is still a valid number on that basis. Waleside are still building up to that tonnage. We haven't seen that tonnage yet coming out of the underground. It's projected that that's where we're going. There are some improvements being made to the shaft. So that's still got to happen to prove that. But that's the projection. Now, if you think just extending that, if you go back to 89, let's call it 90, work in round figures for the moment. So if you go back to 90, at existing depressed ammonium paratungstate prices, depressed prices as they are at the moment, we get, I think, $111 net per metric ton unit. That's the projections. I emphasize it's subject to seeing that tonnage come out. That's got to happen. It's got to come out at that grade. And that's what we've got to recover.
Can I just comment that that's great to hear those figures, and to hear those figures later will be great as well, the projections and the calculations. It's something that in a newsfeed or RNS we would really benefit from when we get figures through, because it tends to be a confused kind of picture because we're not miners, because we're not geologists.
I understand.
You know, trying to understand what the actual figures mean in a kind of real terms of profits and such like is great for us. So we benefit from that moving forward, I think.
No, I absolutely understand it. I mean, it isn't that these numbers that I'm speaking about have not been, they're in various RNS at various occasions. But I understand the need to actually explain it and go into some detail. So that goes again to the opportunity to sit and have this kind of discussion. And hopefully that starts helping with some of that. But I absolutely understand it. I can't wait for the day when I can issue an RNS that says, there's the money in the bank. I mean, that's what I actually want to do. Okay.
George, you've emphasised the production rate quite a bit.
Yes.
And I guess from your last comments, it would seem sort of non-technical that there's still a fair amount of risk in the likelihood of you being able to achieve this over the next 3 to 4 months. Would that be okay?
There is some risk, yes. The work that has to be done, and I think I alluded to this in a recent RNS when I spoke about the ore pass that needs to be constructed. That's a case of going above the normal discharge level, constructing this, finishing it off, the conveyor to the plant feed. There are a number of those things, which is all it's all happening at the moment. But they're things that are going to go into the future. So yes, there is. There is. I think there is always some risk associated with a future event. We may not have been as good as we should have been at managing some of the time-related risks that we've had. And there are a number of reasons for that. But I think that we've got a hell of a lot better at identifying what they are and starting to deal with them and to constructively engage with them and try and be a little bit more proactive in getting to the bottom of them and avoiding them. So,
Given that, it may be more realistic to set expectations with the investor community that it may be Q1 or even Q2 of next year before you really optimize this end-to-end and have got some track record then in terms of knowing the quality of what's being dug out of the ground, is it consistent through to the processing and so forth?
to have the track record that supports it, I agree with you. Okay, into Q1. To have got to the stage where that's what we are achieving, what little hair I've got left will all be gone if that's where it's going to be. And over, what did the South African Minister of Finance said the other day? Something about over his dead body or whatever it was, where they're going to remove him. I don't know if you all follow that news story going on. But, you know, maybe I must say that as well, because really, and I think everybody in Premier knows that at the moment.
No, I would take issue with that. I think it's vital that the sooner you get to a position where you can give a sort of run rate
Yes.
set of metrics, that people can then, they don't have to wait for a set of accounts.
Oh, no, absolutely. Look, the matrix and the oopsie daisy. This thing here, the sensitivities that surround this, we understand. That we kind of live with, and the budgets that go with it, and so on. I wake up and go to sleep with that one on my mind. So we're very clear as to where we have to be. We're extremely sensitive to it.
People can work out using these metrics So there's wild fluctuating numbers out there in terms of what you're capable of sort of generating sort of cash flow per month.
Yeah, there must be some sort of ballpark figure that you're aiming to achieve.
That.
In
Exactly
dollars,
that.
though, in dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to go back, but I think it's the right way to do this is that I need to go. I understand this. I hear what's being said to me. To go back, to deal with those sensitivities and put those sensitivities out in a press release. Would that be the right way to do it?
Yes.
You look at it and tell me if I can publish it.
It's
Okay.
open to interpretation by everybody using different figures.
Yes.
You've done with a
Okay.
static figure and say, this is now, past is the past. That's where we start,
Yes.
where we move.
I'm quite happy to do that. I will draft something. It'll have to be discussed very carefully with Beaumont Cornish, with our advisors and so on, and with the board. But I'm very comfortable to go and sit down and I'll start doing that exercise and we'll have the discussion.
One of those reasons is because we look at all the loans, all the facilities around it, the RNS is covering, and we need
Yeah.
to know that at a point,
Yes,
what's covering what here, and where we're going and why we're doing
Absolutely.
something.
absolutely. Okay, I understand. And thank you. Okay.
Are we able to ask the brokers questions directly?
I don't know whether they'll answer, but you can
Well,
try.
it's-
You can try.
They're cool, and I'm-
Try. Try.
But, you know, happy to try and be helpful.
I know that brokers get very uncomfortable about putting forecasts into RNSs. Yeah,
Well, what we plan to do is when we know we have clarity, we're going to put out some forward numbers.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty true to our institutional client base, but they usually work their way around the market, won't they?
In a research note.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think.
Do you want to add to that, Ryan?
No,
Exactly the same
But
thing.
there
Yeah.
is- yeah, but I mean, I would put my foot down if I were you with your brokers. Because I think there's a lot you can do.
He's bigger than me.
Yeah, there needs to be a step change in sort of quality of RNS in terms of content than just tone. I'm happy to say more, but
You're welcome to say it. It's an open forum.
I would agree with that as well. And the consensus is across Person Effects, in effect, I would say, is that there's not enough detail about how these loans are going to be paid off. And so there's a lot of anxiety provoked from that. And so that's where those figures will feed into that. And that's what we really need to know. How we were making these decisions about taking these loans and payment plans. You know, where's the information for that coming from?
Okay.
And I'm sure you'll come on to that shortly. There's only a lot of concern in the PR market about Darwin. A lot.
We'll come into that discussion just now.
But it's, I mean, look, it's clearly in your character that you are very careful in what you say and you don't want to sort of make promises, so you use wording in interviews or in RNSs and sort of, sort of slightly hedge yourself in terms of things that might not happen or might go wrong. But I think, there's a way of sort of communicating with a bit more positivity. Everyone knows that, shit happens. But, I think if people just take the wrong message from that is, you just don't want to be pinned down.
Point taken. And the point has been made by others, and I accept it. Okay.
No, that's very helpful.
Okay. I think we'd already discussed that one. Let's move on to there. Some fundamentals on the tungsten market. I think we pretty well know a lot of this. And I think I have to say thank you to Ryan Northlands for providing this. Could I ask the comments I've made in relation to wolframite pricing and tungsten pricing, is that more or less where you are, or do you want to add to it?
Yeah, I mean, we generated 3 scenarios in April for the tungsten price over the next 5 years, and all 3 of those scenarios, based on different levels of risk, had a price somewhere above $400 in MTUs by 2020. And we see a steady increase in price to that time, based on those 3 scenarios, and some prices higher, largely less based.
Subject presumably to what the Chinese do.
Yeah, I mean, we've
On illegal mining in China. No, I can't. I'm not. I really and truly, I don't know. I really don't know. Ryan, your thoughts on that?
I think it's fairly insignificant.
Yeah. If I've got any thoughts on that, I think that that's probably correct. I don't think that it's as big as. Sorry? I don't know. I really don't know. I'd be surprised. I really.
The price is where it is right now.
Yeah, I am too.
And that is the reason why.
Because of illegal Chinese mining?
Yeah, not the quota, 30%.
Sure. I don't know. Guys who may know, I mean, people like Wogan and so on who are trading out in that part of the world might know. I mean, I'll ask others, but I don't know. Okay. Okay, Zulu. Zulu Lithium and Tantalum project. I've covered a lot of these fundamentals already. I think what's interesting is some of the history that RST originally drilled this thing. That they identified over an area that I think was around about 150 odd meters, a relatively small area, and down to 50 meters. They identified something like 1 million tons of spodumene at around about 1.5. We've extended the surface expression to 3.5 kilometers. We've intersected it 4 or 5 years ago when we drilled. We intersected this thing at depth, around about 200 meters. So, I don't know what kind of extrapolation one wants to add onto this thing. It's like 7 times, it was 500 meters. It was 7 times on length and 4 times on depth. How big is it? I don't know, but it's big. It's a very, very substantial structure. Outcrops, and it's a very nice one, an easy one to work on. So there we go. Exploration extended 3,500 meters and continuity down to 200 meters. Our drilling will do 2 things. We will test the strike extensions to a relatively shallow depth, around about 100 meters, and that'll be wide spaced. And then we'll come into the core areas where the historic work was done, and where we had drilled also in that 4.5, 5 years ago time when we drilled before we listed. And in that area we will drill far more intensely with a view to being able to develop a compliant resource statement and to be able to understand which zones, because these pegmatites are all zoned, which zones are going to be the best to tackle from an initial production perspective. So that's the objective of that.
Building on what you said earlier, roughly it will be about this time next year we should have a much greater sense of what's the commerciality of it, routes to extraction. So evolve again,
I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be earlier than that. My target is earlier than that. I haven't got the patience to wait 12 months for that.
So you think by, say, end of Q1 next year you'll be much better?
Well, earlier, when we discussed it earlier, sort of my target is around about 4 to 5 months. So, yeah, that's kind of the outside end of it.
Yeah, I guess what I meant by that was understanding the finances around, so that it's not just what's there, but actually the whole route to extraction.
Yes.
Costs of extraction.
Yes.
Yeah, a timetable to say,
Yes.
okay, this is actually what it will take. Because
Yes.
the RHA didn't just appear, it's taken many, many years. But really,
Yeah.
so I'm not trying to be critical.
No, I understand.
Yeah, so it's not critical. It's just trying to get some level of expectation of when one would have a much firmer, good grasp of the financial aspects in this wider sense as to what's involved. So it's not just the actual raw.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Look, I think we've got a reasonable idea internally, and the various consultants and others that we've spoken to about the different alternatives of what we do with this. We understand the spodumene market, that's pretty well that price has remained stable all the way through, around about $750 to $780 a ton, something like that. It hasn't really moved. We understand the lithium content contained within it. I think we've got a reasonable understanding of that. So I would like to think that in this environment that we're in at the moment, with lithium and the interest in it, that this we can move along much quicker. Okay. Where are we here? Circum. Circum. Yeah, I don't know. That's the very interesting thing there is this. I mean, that figure there, and that's fully diluted, no?
What does anybody know why there's a delay in the license for Circum? Because it's been ongoing with no communications from anyone. As a shareholder, would you, or do they discuss this? Is there any issues or anything to help us understand what can happen and what may be happening? Because it's worth nothing until a license is given. To us,
Well,
there's no guarantees.
Okay. I don't know whether the Ethiopian government has signed the license and given them the license at this stage. I truly and honestly don't know. If I did, I'd say so. We obviously, because that property was originally through another company and so on and so forth, I was very closely involved in that thing. So we have a lot of people in Ethiopia that talk to us. And Bruce Cumming was in Ethiopia fairly recently. He came back from Ethiopia and he said to me that people in Ethiopia had indicated to him that the license negotiation and so on was all done and finished and so on. So I can't, I don't know. I don't know. But I don't believe that it represents an issue, because holding the exploration licenses, you are the only party that has a right to apply for the mining licenses. And the mining license process on a project that size is not just a license with a piece of paper. It involves a huge negotiation with the state in regard to what the state's static royalty may be, what the taxation structure is going to be. You're talking about a project with a couple of $1 million to build. You're going to be negotiating write-off periods, amortization periods. You're going to be negotiating who's building the road, who's doing this, who's fixing the port. There are so many things that go into that eventual convention. It's not just a license with a piece of paper. It's a huge, huge process that governs everything that happens with the mining on it.
I agree with that statement. That's why I'm concerned that people are putting values on it from anywhere, but it doesn't. We don't know a true value. Even this is not a true value, because you still have all these infrastructure. You have it's Africa. If you've worked in Africa, you know exactly what other costs are going to come across. So to myself, that is something that doesn't exist. It's a bonus when it comes across. It sits.
Yeah, no, I think in this instance, that's a number there that has taken worst case scenarios into account.
But maybe we can ask a couple of questions then. So, do you have any idea what the sort of the terminology used today has always been a liquidity event? Do you have any idea what the sort of transaction structure that's being contemplated is?
No, I don't, because I haven't seen anything. Do I know the people who are involved in it and who are negotiating whatever it is they're negotiating? I mean, that I do, and I would be surprised if the negotiation is anything other than wanting to sell.
So mind, I'm not thinking it's obviously, but in your mind, it would be a sale of the company.
I believe that's what I think. I think that's knowing the people. I think we can all go through it. You can go and look at the whatever. I don't think that there's any particular desire. I don't know what Brad Mills's mind is like, but I know some of the others. There's a private equity group that's got a significant stake in it. You can look at the chairman and other directors. You can see who they are and go and look at the history. And I think you can reach a reasonably comfortable conclusion if history is going to be the guideline that the objective is to sell.
Again, we're against their timescales, not ours. But we have put things in place that directly link to that sale, which is a concern.
Yeah, only on the basis that Sercom has indicated that they anticipate a liquidity event this year.
We're just sort of quasi off the record a little bit here, but so.
Can you switch off that camera at the back there?
But, yeah,
That's all right. Don't worry. Don't worry.
So, I think it's generally, say, known or understood that the site visits by potential investors, buyers, took place 2 or 3 months ago. Yeah. In your, I mean, I know you're obviously not going to commit, but in your mind, what would you like to sort of see over the next 2 to 3 months?
I'd like to understand that an agreement's been reached, if there is an agreement reached, and I'd like to know what the detail of the agreement is. Let me just make an observation to you that if for example, this is a Chinese SOE that is in a negotiation, and I don't know, I honestly do not know. If it was that, the kind of money that you're talking about here is going to take 6 months to be released out of China. So, the kind of money you're talking about here, yes, they got Morgan Stanley involved. They've announced that. Obviously, they're there because of access to money. But the amount of money involved in this thing is significant. So it's going to be a process.
But you and Sercom made statements around liquidity events.
They made the statement. I'm repeating what they said.
Do you think that they would, being a private company, they would still announce that a deal had been reached on signing, or would they wait till closing? Your knowledge of the people.
I don't think they would announce until they knew that it was going to close. And and the reason I say that, you've said it yourself. First of all, they're a private company. Secondly, there may be sensitivities if they sell the entire company. So I don't think that they would necessarily announce until they're at a point where there's a handover of money.
It's clear from the things you've said, you don't see this as a sort of a bonus that may happen. You still feel pretty confident. It's just a question of time.
Yes, I do. No, that's how I feel. I feel that this is a question of time. I don't feel that this is something that may just happen. The project's real. I know it's real. I've walked on it. It's huge. It's massive. It's an incredible project. It's seriously good value. This thing is one of those that I believe goes into production.
So just to, I don't want to hold all the questions. Just on going back to the RHA and the loan account. And
Yes.
Obviously we've got a lot more shares in issue now than there was 12 months ago. What's your current thinking about what you're going to do with the proceeds and RHA cash generation? Are you going to use it to push all the other projects around, or do you see some return to shareholders through buybacks and dividends?
I would like to see returns to shareholders as quickly as possible. That's frankly where I would like to be. I don't know what Sercom's going to do with this thing. I mean, if I don't know, they're not going to get that. I don't know what they're going to get. Assume they get, I don't know, $500,000 for it. $500 million, should I say. I don't know. Assume they get 25% of that. That puts us at what, $5 a share? It's $10 million it comes in.
And if you,
It's a significant amount of money.
if you had a Chinese SOE that had a 6-month delay in terms of getting the proceeds, would you contemplate striking a deal with Circum to sort of take 90%, 95% for cash up front by selling the shares?
I would consider selling some.
Yeah.
I'd obviously like to retain as much as possible, because if the deal is done, and there are ways of establishing, is this thing real, is it really done, etc., etc., etc. Yes, I would definitely consider taking part of it. And I think there'd be nothing wrong with taking part of it and at least deal with loan notes, for example.
Yeah. Either with Circum
Or whatever.
with another finance provider.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Okay. Okay. This is an interesting one. This hasn't closed yet, but I'd like to just dwell on it for a little while, if I may. Well, I'm just looking at the time. The lines, the interesting things about this. I'm just going to skip forward a little bit. Yeah. This railway line that sits along here is in fact the main Beira Tet coal transit line. On the property, there's a 3-lane siding. There are passing sidings built into this thing at all sorts of different places. But we have an extra siding that was constructed by Mozambican Railways, which is there. It's there specifically to allow us to load. And it's a recognized station. Passenger trains that come up to Kaya from Beira on a regular basis can actually stop there. So it's even a recognized station, but it's there primarily as a loading facility, so that when this develops, that's what we can do. I've had not, up until this one, come across a substantial exploration target where I could look at it and say the things that normally stop you from developing a mine are already in place. The railway's in place. There's major power lines that run right across this property. The main north-south highway runs through the property. There's adequate water. There's infrastructure. There's accommodation. There's whatever one wants. It's literally just about everything you want is there. And the motivation to go ahead and spend money on this as an exploration target is so much better because of those existing other infrastructures that are there. And then add to it this existing forest concession, which is there. The total concession area covers about 25,000 hectares. It is a huge tract of land. In the next 10 years, if we just project value on those things there, those bits of wood, this property has the right to harvest 3,000 cubic meters of timber per year. The recovery on that timber, if one works at 50%, it's normally a bit lower, but they do some other things. They create various other wooden items. If you just work on a 50% recovery of that timber, the export price for A-grade kiln-dried cut planks is about $1,200 a cubic meter. So you can start doing your numbers. You can come back to 1,500 cubic meters times $12,000 a cubic meter. That's the value in situ of that stuff that's standing. And that's per annum times 10.
Currently, through an RNS, I think you indicated, or there's some research done by others, that it's currently loss-making or certainly not profitable.
When we first started this negotiation, the timber division was not making money. And there were a number of reasons for it. Part of it was that they had been operating a furniture manufacturing facility in Beira. And that furniture manufacturing facility had accrued a huge overhead in terms of people and in terms of various other things. Now, that has been wound down. The property that they had in Beira has been sold, other than a small area which has been retained where export containers are packed and various other things like that. The money that came from that was used to liquidate the staff and other costs. So that has all been done. At this moment in time, this operation has gone from that loss-making situation and has moved back into a profit-making situation. Even though this deal hasn't closed, we've given them quite a bit of guidance and other assistance and so on in terms of the marketing side of hardwoods. And the very latest situation on that is that that's out of the red, in the black. And this is only expected to continue to grow, and that will provide, even if it doesn't provide the direct cost of paying for a drill rig standing there, it's going to provide all the supportive costs, the accommodation, the this, the that, and all sorts of other things that go with it. So that exploration program is going to be a low-cost exploration program.
You can turn it into profit without actual material investments. There's other circumstances, etc., means that with the right management, you can actually turn it, the timber into profit.
Absolutely.
To a level.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it's already profitable, is what you said.
It's moved from the red into the black.
So you can make it even more profitable.
Absolutely.
It's already profitable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's doing quite a bit of export into the UK at the moment. I don't know if you've looked. There's a... You can go and have a look at it. There's a website which is Dalman, D-A-L-M-A-N-N UK. And you can have a look. A lot of... that will tell you a little bit about it. From there, you can link into their main websites and so on. The other thing is that in the central areas of Mozambique, and I'm sure you've seen this as well, there is an amount of unrest. Unrest, wrong word, disagreement, whatever you want to call it, between Renamo, and the Renamo faction is the most popular part of, or the best supported in the central Mozambique regions. The Frelimo government, or the Mozambique government, sits in Maputo, which is a couple of thousand kilometers away, and right in the southeastern corner of the country, and actually wants to control and not give any autonomy to the central regions. So there are some issues that are going on at the moment. One of the effects of that is that the game farm, which is incorporated into this operation, is hardly operating. Now, that also has a 32-bed lodge, and that lodge has got a high occupancy rate from travelers passing through. Now, that's not happening at the moment. As soon as that situation settles down, that goes back to a high occupancy, becomes very popular, and that just adds to it. So, it's as I said earlier, it provides a hedge to what we really want to do, and says it's going to make it a lot less costly. Yes, sorry.
Could you remind me what it'll cost to close? You know, is it cash or shares or combination?
It's cash at this stage. The initial payment is $440,000. That's cash, and we hold the cash. And the subsequent payments, there's a further $400,000 that will come 60 days after the closing, which can be cash or shares. That's basically what the agreement says. And Brendan, you'll have to help me. There are 2 further tranches to one of the sellers, and then spread over 2 years, there are a couple more tranches.
I'm not so worried about the long term, it's the short term.
The short term is $440,000 on closing. We hold the cash.
And then the second step,
60 days
60
later.
days after payment of the first. Now, what we plan to do is to attempt to deal with the closing as quickly as we can. excuse me, because I think the due diligence is substantively done at this point. But before money can be remitted into Mozambique, we need Reserve Bank authorization, and that takes time. Mike knows Mozambique well as well. So the permission from the Reserve Bank to remit the first $440,000, that's got to be given to us. When that is given, we'll remit that money. But the business will be closed, the final agreements will be in place, done, signed, completely irrevocable, and so on.
So that's not a closing condition, the remittance.
What's the close, sorry, no, that's the way we've redrafted these agreements at this stage. We will only make the payment when the Reserve Bank says you may make the payment. So we'll hold it until then. Come to the second tranche. The second tranche will only be payable 60 days after the first tranche is paid. So I'm not quite sure how long the Mozambican government's going to take, or the Reserve Bank is going to take to say, okay, you can make that payment. If they make it in 10 days, we'll pay them in 10 days. If they give the permission in 2 months, we'll pay them in 2 months. And if it's in 2 months, then only 2 months after that, 4 months down the line, will we come to the second tranche.
Whose choice is it for cash or shares?
It's the seller's choice, cash or shares.
And is there any restrictions around, orderly market?
Absolutely.
In terms of
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. No, in terms of shares, 100% restriction. That's there. Orderly market is written into it. Okay. I can't go through any potential economics on the limestone. I can only say that there are 2 cement factories in Beira. The calcium carbonate content is acceptable based on the initial sampling we've done for use in cement. But the big demands are aggregate, and the byproduct of aggregate is agri-lime. There's no agri-lime that's supplied in Mozambique at the moment. It's all imported. We have had multiple approaches for wanting access to the product.
I suspect, to be honest, that the interest now is much more around your current financial, because earlier on, put in the slide, you said our share price, or your share price was 4.2
Yep.
pence. Well, sadly, that's 10 times what it was, at least on my understanding of it. If it was at 4.2 pence, I think you would currently have a much warmer welcome in this room. So I think what concerns a lot of private investors is currently the share price, the risk of further dilution, the risk that when you start to deal with Darwin, your share price was significantly higher, for whatever reason it's fallen, that's creating risk. I think that's really a big
Okay. Well, I think let's take the rest of the time. I don't think that we need to go into the rest of this. I think we know where we are.
Can I just ask one more question on the
Sure.
CCC then? It's going to morph into this anyway, but you said you're looking to announce in September. Will you be close and make an announcement? Will you be giving sort of financial parameters on the performance of the business as an update as to what it's currently doing, i.e., you said it's in the black, and actually say what it specifically is doing when you make that announcement?
I think we can.
Yeah.
If I've got to make the announcement tomorrow, I'm not going to do it. But if the announcement is going to come late in September,
Well,
yes.
20 days from last Monday, I guess.
Yes.
Is this your sort of joke to sort of put this announcement out within those 20 days to deal with the sort of soft trigger point?
I hadn't actually viewed it in that context. I don't have 20 days to make this announcement. The soft trigger in regard to closing of TCT, I think, is only sometime in November, Brendan?
Yeah, it's November, end of November.
Yeah, so I don't have an issue with that one.
No, I meant the soft trigger in relation to
Market capitalization.
something probably needs to happen. That's not going to happen.
Well, the only comfort on that can be what the market capitalization of the company actually is. And I think there are a whole series of questions that relate to this. So I'm not quite sure whether you want to deal with it on a question basis or whether you would like me to just talk this thing through. Should I talk it through in terms of why we went the Darwin route, perhaps? Okay. The price at which we were being offered money, and we have been offered money on a number of occasions from various different parties. The price at which we were being offered money was round about 0.5, 0.51, 0.52. And then there was a discussion as to what the commission or brokerage charges or whatever it were going to be. And this was always somewhere between 7 and 10%. So if you go to...
But this was when the share price was what? Sort of 0.6, 0.6?
Yes, 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 yes. That's where we were. So if you take 0.52 and take another 10% off it, it's 5. That takes you down to 0.47. So that's pretty well where the best kind of offers were. And those offers were all in the region of £500,000, there or thereabouts. So had one gone down that route, which we could have done, it would have resulted in more than one raise, and it would have resulted in a cost which was very nearly the same cost on a projected discount basis as the Darwin deal has cost us. But the Darwin deal had no dilution attached to it. And the structure of the deal... No, absolutely, in theory, but it's got no dilution right now. And it can't have a dilution right now. So there was no dilution attached to it at that time. I did not anticipate, none of us on the board anticipated, none of our advisors anticipated that there would be the extent of reaction in terms of the share price and the markdown on market capital as has happened. So
I struggle to comprehend that. I mean, having been a shareholder through the time of Darwin last time, you know, when I can't remember when the price was 3.3 or whatever, and it ended up at sort of 0.27 from memory. You know, and having people that sort of, most shareholders have probably gone through that. Some you know, didn't average down, a lot did, myself included, and you know, having come out the other side of that, which I think is why you know some of the delays in RJ people were pretty sanguine about, and then to be hit with you know, Darwin. I don't think there's no one from Darwin here today, is there?
no, can I comment on that? Let me in fact just come in and comment on that. I did invite Darwin to come here. They're fully aware of the fact that we're having this discussion, and they know that there was going to be an open discussion. I, in fact, met with the Darwin people earlier today. Darwin cannot give me an undertaking that they're not going to affect a conversion, because they don't know in another 2 weeks' time or whenever it is what the market capitalization of the company is going to be, or if there has been any other soft or hard trigger that is going to be hit at some time in the future. Hopefully there isn't going to be. So they can't say to me they won't do a conversion. But at this moment in time, I believe what I'm told, and I believe what I see looking at the trading in the marketplace, that no one's, I don't know, maybe someone's taken a position against us that I don't know about. But I don't see anything that tells me that there's some short position of some substance that's been taken anywhere. I don't know of it. We've had no notification that says that warrants are to be exercised. Sure, they got warrants. They can exercise warrants. But they have not exercised. They have not given me any indication that they're going to. Again, they can't say we won't do it in the future, but at this point in time they aren't, and they haven't.
But what is clear is today's capitalisation
Yes,
So that's
that's factual.
so even if Darwin aren't themselves, loss of confidence in the investor base, whatever, and I guess the original question was, is there any likelihood of some positive news in this period until the 25 days are up which might actually mean that the share price will be above that level. I mean, none of us know what Darwin are going to do. We take that
Okay.
outside of your control. They have the right to look at today's price if it were to exist. Whether they do or don't, well, your relationship with them may influence it. I don't know. But I guess the question is there anything else which can be done which will actually improve investor sentiment, which, if it were to improve, could drive the share price up?
Well, the potential news flow, I think we've identified part of it. It's work ongoing at Zulu. It's the changing of the mesh screens and operating at RHA. I mean, those are two, I think, that are significant. There's the closing of the Mozambique situation. So I think that there are three, and I've discussed those three. Sorry, just a second.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say that those screens fitting situations are going to be seen as a negative on the market, I would assume, just because there's a lot of frustration around that and how it's not been organised beforehand. So that's not going to be seen as a positive stuff, because it's kind of like there's a continual kind of issues to resolve, What I think might be a positive is if you, when we're closing this TCT deal, is if you put in those projected figures on the timber and how much income is going to be coming through from that potentially, that's going to be seen as a positive. And then if we can look at how we're going to be paying off these loans to Darwin, and also, crucially, there's some kind of confusion around one of the loans that we took that's linked to Circum shares, and there's some confusion around whether or not you have a right over buying those shares at $2 a share, and that's quite like a key factor at the moment on
Okay. Let's deal with that one. That one I'm very comfortable to deal with. And let me say this. I don't believe that I have a right. I think that the situation that exists is that Premier has a